Coast, knowing that that's one of the best attractions that we have world over. So that's all going to be happening right here. And of course, we'd like to find out from you. As usual, we tag you in a question where we'd like to get your opinion. The hashtag is KTN Morning Express. Trix is at Trix Ingado. I am at Michael G. Gitonga. Here's the question.
Do you think there are enough incentives to boost local tourism? Do you think there are enough incentives to boost local tourism? Wherever you are, have you been trying to get into it? Have you tried to benefit from the national treasures that we have? And do you feel that it is conducive for you, particularly now that they're trying to reach out to people, locals, and get them to invest in local tourism? So do you think they're doing enough? I'm at Trix Ingado, as he said. He's at Michael G. Gitonga, and the hashtag to use this morning is KTN Morning Express, and be a part of the conversation that we shall be having right here on the show. But now let's start off with press review. Let's take a look at what's making headlines. And we're going to kick this off with the Standard. We're told this, or rather, let's take a look at some of the international papers first and see what's making headlines. And we'll start off with the CNN and see what their top story this morning is. Okay, I think we seem to have those papers not ready. All right, there it is. The CNN, U.S. making Taiwan support very clear. And of course, the war on COVID-19 is still making headlines on that paper. After COVID-19 surges from July 4th, Fauci is worried about another one following Labor Day. And then, of course, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson says he is on the mend from the virus. A lot of celebrities have come out to say that they got the virus. And of course, this has gone a long way to give those people who have it the heart to fight it off, as because of course they look up to these celebrities. Let's move on to another paper. I do see the BBC right there. The BBC is leading with the campaign in the United States, political campaigns. Biden calls for police to be charged in shooting. Now, the Democratic White House candidate spoke after completing a record-breaking fundraising haul. And of course, this comes in the wake of a lot of police brutality reports and protests. We saw the Black Lives Matter campaign taking center stage and rocking that nation. Even amid the COVID-19, people came out and to the streets to, protest against, the police brutality against people of color. And various incidences have come out, and technology has played a huge part in this one, and in ensuring that people are informed and see for themselves what people of black skin go through under the hands of, police who are not, straight. So let's take a look at the African side of things. This one says, there's an article here based on Ethiopia. U.S. cuts $100 million in aid to Ethiopia over Nile Dam row. Africa Live, they're telling us it's still about Ethiopia plans a massive free bread handout. I think that would be a good thing for the locals. And then Nigeria drummer who set the beat for U.S. civil rights movement. This article, I did read it, and it does talk about this individual who was part and parcel of the fight for, the civil rights of black people in the United States. He did say that the people in diaspora, Africans in diaspora, were part and parcel of that fight, even though some of them were quite silent about it. Now, let's take a look at the bottom of this page as we scroll down. I'm gonna go finish feeding my daughter. Buffy Wicks was denied a request to vote remotely during maternity leave, so she brought her daughter to work. A lot of talk has been, particularly in the feminist community, about women having the right to feed their children. And of course, we had New Zealand Prime Minister being hailed for being in the equivalent of the Kenyan Parliament in that country, for coming out and with her child in the house. Then you have U.S. sanctioned staff at top war crimes court. Russian opposition leader poised with Novik. Germany says Alexei Navalny was attacked with a type of nerve agent used against an ex-spy in the UK. We did still see that report coming out a few years ago, and this man has been fighting for his life for the past few weeks. Let's move on to the Al Jazeera. Gaza, and we're having exclusive French reform proposal for Lebanon delves into details. Now, France proposed a detailed draft list of sweeping reforms it is pressuring Lebanon to implement by the year. Unlawful metal pellets again used against Lebanese protesters, and of course another story with the police brutality angle making it to the international page, as well as the International Criminal Court condemning U.S. sanctions on officials, and that NAV agent that was also made headlines on the BBC is also being reported on in Al Jazeera, that was used against Novichok, it was found in Russia's Alexei Navalny in Germany. So these are the top stories internationally, but let's take a look at what's making headlines locally. Now, I trust we have our guest ready right now. Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi is joining us for this bit of the show. We'll start off with the Standard this morning, thorn in DP's flesh. Now, tormentor in chief, this is what is being the subtitle of this story is, Jubilee Vice Chair David Murathe, unrelenting attacks have put the country's number 2 in an almost permanent defensive positions. And of course, this is not news, but of course, the quotes that have been put on the front page are very interesting this morning. We have DP Ruto, who has now come out to defend himself recently, both on Twitter and publicly. Here is a quote. He says, the corruption consultants, brokers and conmen, some bankrupt in 2013, are now billionaires after looting. The end is nigh, nowhere to hide. That's what the DP says. While Jubilee Vice Chair David Murathe has said, we care who will come after this president, so we have to sit and scheme. We don't know who will be president, but we are working very hard on who will not be. Very interesting. It seems like the lines have been drawn here and it is all out. Now, Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi, welcome to the show. Could you tell us your opinion on this story, the tormentor in chief, as it's being put?
Thank you, Twix, and thanks, Michael. This is high voltage succession politics.
Yeah.
Clearly, players that are non-state players are fairly active, and this is really a battle that would be fought between political parties in a fight for succession, except that on the one hand, Mr. Murathe is acting as if he was somebody else's spokesman, and not just a Jubilee party position, because all of it is within Jubilee. But hopefully all the parties involved, those within and outside Jubilee, will be planning. I think this is just to capture the headlines.
Right.
It just shows a lot of anxiety about who will succeed the president in 2022, and we should expect a lot more of this kind of drama.
Yeah, and it's playing out in the public eye. Why do you think the DP is finally coming out and breaking the silence and now, lashing out in retaliation to all the comments that have been made? Because there was a time where he was quite silent, and now it seems he is literally making his stance be heard on things such as the referendum and, his 2022 bid.
I think that the silence was a strategy on the part of the DP, and now he's probably decided that it's time to have some pushback because he's also, but he must be sensing that state power is going to wane, is going to sort of reduce irrespective of what it seems like now as you get closer to the elections.
Yes.
The presidency in all countries seem to be like lame duck as they get close to the elections. And that maybe he should now begin filling that void by speaking up a bit. I would also assume that he's probably doing his own planning, whatever that planning might be.
Right.
It's from the papers, if it were to believe them, that his options are limited, but you never know. I think there are always unlimited options that people can bring to bear.
Indeed.
And I think he must be counting on the fact that when push comes to shove, as we approach the elections, everybody will be shoving everywhere, and he'll only be the one who's a target. So I think he's just trying to speak back and say, I'm here, I'm still here.
Right, indeed, even though he seems to be isolated, if the papers and the word from the journalists that cover this continuing story is anything to go by. Now, let's shift gears to another story that has been making Kenyans really shocked in the past few weeks. That has to do with KEMSA and the apparent misconduct mismanagement of funds meant to procure, and of course the fact that they do have a lot of these equipment and PPE laying about because of market value has gone down, or they're waiting for favorable conditions, all at the same time fingers being pointed at the CS and PS for responsibility. Now the latest on this one is that Kagwe has said, and as the paper put it, it is has thrown KEMSA under the bus, and he says yes, we have a problem at KEMSA and no money was lost. So he does say it was just a matter of management, and he did not endorse any corrupt activity to go on. Now the CS, he did say KEMSA currently has that 6.2 billion worth of equipment that they are holding in their stores and cannot sell because the prices have gone down. The problem was the agency's failure to find the right balance in procuring of said equipment. Now, what do you make of this one?
I think it's a very convoluted story, but unfortunately it's not new for us in Kenya. The Minister of Health has always had these kinds of problems. You remember there was a time when we had these mobile clinics where they don't know how many million shillings lying at the port, and they lay there for years and nobody was doing anything with it. If we have equipment, Kenyans are dying, the challenges are big in terms of PPEs and in terms of any other supportive materials they have imported. You'd imagine the government would say, let's get them out, even if it's going there to be sold at a loss. Pick the loss, but save the Kenyans. You can't have that kind of heavy cost equipment just lying around. And I listened to the discussions at the Senate that the CS and the PS were having, and clearly it was mostly about saving their own skin. I don't think it was explained to Kenyans clearly what has happened. There are very many unanswered questions still remaining. I think it points to the fact that senior people in public places should not assume that they can lean on institutions to procure in ways that benefit them. And when they are caught, they say, but there was no loss. First of all, just this procurement itself causes public loss, also finance. For example, if they are going to sell this equipment at prices that will be much lower than the cost, somebody has to pick up a subsidy that perhaps with a better plan there would not have been. They're complaining about, some people are complaining about who was given a contract. I'm glad the president did announce that all those people who are given contracts should have their names put out in public domain. I think just shows that everybody's now just struggling to save their necks, but nobody is really looking at questions of ultimate efficiency, which will point to whether or not government was able to procure goods and services that responded in time, in real time, to the needs of Wanjiku.
Right, and as this goes on, you do remember that there was a reason why this equipment and PPE were being procured. So do you think it is right for the focus to be squarely on the inquiries and blame game, as opposed to figuring out while this is happening, while we're figuring what happened where, can we also at the same time get these these goods to the people that need them? I feel like that is something that is being largely ignored.
I think that certainly something has to give way when the focus shifts. The whole nation's focus seems to shift in one corner. Certainly it takes away attention from other areas. But you know, the importance of this focus, it will not be long, this is going to be a short-term focus, is that unless this is taken care of, the capacity of government to respond down the road, down at the point post this focus, will be limited. The focus is important, and I hope that as KEMSA is told about the problem they have holding on to equipment when Kenyans are dying out there, we'll be into discussions with the counties and counties with the Treasury, and Treasury is hearing that yes, let's get these items out at any cost, because after all they're lying within our own stores now. They will be useless if they're not used. Let's get them there at any cost, so that the challenge of dealing with the support to our sick and the patients out there continues. But unfortunately, most of our attention is on the drama that's going on. But I hope that the line officers in the background are still continuing to work, because there is work that's needed out there.
Right. And now, a very common denominator when it comes to today's politician is the use of social media, and an angle that's being covered. One, the DP does quite frequently air his views via Twitter, and now here we're being told on the same page 5 of the Standard about health CS turning to Facebook magic as ouster calls intensify. And we have a sampled here Facebook status that says, minds an unbowed fight against corruption for all our sakes. Join the war, there's no surrender, no retreat. So he is taking initiative to talk to the people himself, and of course, speak to his innocence in this whole matter, as far apart from his appearances before the National Assembly Health Committee, and just trying to set it clear what his intentions are. What do you think of the efficacy of this sort of mode of communication as opposed to the traditional statements and press briefings?
I think it's any mode of communication should be tested against the impact on the target audience.
Yes.
I think this is not working out well, and I think that maybe it's time that the team should now revisit and see what would be. First of all, people are now complaining that the way the briefings go, that they've sort of become routine, and that they don't seem to change with the changes in the Corona challenge. Clearly, it's as if this is a pre-written script that is not responding to daily needs. For example, the areas in which this disease is expanding are different. The profile of the people now seems to be different. We don't get a sense that, in fact, the briefings are responding to all of this. There are cost questions, and I think it needs to be done differently.
Yeah. Now let's talk about corruption. We are told on page 4 about a governor being hard pressed to explain why county millions were not utilized within the allocated time, and this is Trans Nzoia Governor Patrick Kayemba. While on page 6 of the Standard this morning, we are told Obado vows to fight off ODM ouster plot. Now the ODM party and it collectively have decided that it would be in the people's interest to have this governor impeached, but then they do have the numbers to do so. Some of the MCAs have decided they shall be in consultation with the people before they go ahead with this move. So let us know what you make of what is happening in Migori County and graft at the county government in general.
Vix, I think we have a real problem. Migori County has been in the news, on and off for a while. About corruption, but of course, corruption, until proven guilty, people can act as if nothing is happening. The truth of the matter is that it's stinking. I think it's not good, and Mheshimiwa Obado should really just step aside and spend time defending himself, defending his poor children, let's call them that way, his wife, his mother-in-law, his brothers, his friends. You can just see the network. That alone should tell him that it will take him a long time to defend himself in the remaining 18 months. He should really, for the interest of the people in Migori, step aside and let the judicial process proceed, and let somebody else take over his deputy who is in place. Secondly, these anecdotally, many people feel that this is what's happening in most counties. The drama in Migori is just one of many similar dramas around the country. And that maybe it's now the capacity, the institutional capacity to investigate and prosecute where it's necessary is what is now lacking. Looks like they're a bit overwhelmed, the investigative agencies and the prosecutorial agencies. But I think it's not something that we can relent on. If they get overwhelmed, Kenyans are doomed. So Obado should really just step aside, not even wait for impeachment, and defend himself. I don't see himself defending. I don't see him defending himself and his entire family as it is. I think that this is really a major letdown for the country. And if the outside world that gives us aid reads this as if it represents the overall status, then I think we're going to face great difficulty in resource mobilization, even in times of need.
Yeah.
I think this is very, very unfortunate.
Okay, now I'll quote him on what you have said. He said there are other governors who are facing similar charges, but they are not being impeached, as it were. So what do you make of his assertion that he should just continue on? Impeachment is not necessary until he's proven guilty or innocent by the courts of law.
First of all, he's just lucky that he's not been impeached because of the structure of control over MCS in his county. There are many other counties also where impeachment ought to have taken place long ago, but where the governors have got the MCS under their wing. So the MCS do not have the capacity, in a sense, to stand up to the masters who have been feeding them outside of the normal channels of compensation. So the fact that there is a weakness there, there's a weakness in impeaching, does not in any way point towards innocence. It just points towards incapacity for the MCS to carry out their oversight.
Okay.
And also, yes, indeed, he may be right that there are many other governors, and there have been other governors who have been taken before court. But I guess that theirs wasn't a governor, his wife, his daughter, his son, his mother-in-law, and the rest of it. I think that this is really extreme. But probably it's not the only one. Just that we don't know about the others. And in law, you can't say, but there are other guilty ones you have not yet found, so don't prosecute me. Let's start here, and let's move on systematically to all the remaining governors.
Okay, and let's take a look at the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. You're told county salaries fix over Senate mess, and that has to do with the Senate standoff on the revenue allocation formula. Now here we are told about trouble as House drags its feet on the revenue sharing formula. Workers in the devolved units are yet to receive salaries for July and August, forcing governors to turn to commercial loans to reallocate and divert budgets from critical dockets. And you do understand that health, it could be one of those whereby the funds that are given from the health ministry for the fight against COVID-19 could possibly be diverted to handle other matters that might not be as critical as health. So when you see this happening, and given that the group that was meant to decipher which way is forward has even decided to disagree, what do you make of this developing story? We seem to have lost Honorable Bunyasi. We're going to reconnect with him in a few, but let's take a look at the front page still of the Standard. It wasn't me, Kagwe tells MPs, and according to this article, the Health CS Mutahi Kagwe and his Principal Secretary distanced themselves from claims from their agency's multi-billion shilling COVID-19 scandal, and that was before the Health Committee in Parliament. And at no time did I propose to anyone not to follow procurement rules. If you go wrong, it is because the CS told you. It's not because the CS told you, it's because you are a poor manager. Those are his words to ousted KEMSA CEO. But Honorable Bunyasi, I'd like you to comment on this story on the Senate row standoff. County salaries fix over Senate mess. The House is dragging its feet over this, and they are undecided on which way to go because of different interests based on different localities, the winners, the losers. And then we're told on this front page that as this is ongoing, we're having county governments deciding to actually pay salaries by taking out commercial loans, which is quite dangerous because of the interest that will incur, and of course forcing them to also divert funds from critical dockets. If you could unmute your device, Honorable Bunyasi, then let's get your comment.
It is unmuted?
Yes, yes.
Yes, thanks, Trix. I think it must have been an original trick, intention, that if counties were starved of funds,
yes,
the senators would feel under pressure to pass this new arrangement quickly. Because under the PFM Act, Public Finance Management Act, before budgets are actually approved, you are able to spend up to 50% of your previous year's approved allocation, pending the final approval of the new allocation. And the county should not have been started the way they are. We read in the press that many of them have not been able to pay salaries for maybe this is the third month running or thereabouts. That's causing a lot of difficulty to workers. But at the same time, if they're unable to procure essential goods, then it means that the suffering for essential services such as health will be quite severe. It's within the powers of the Treasury, and it's under the law to allow counties to draw down the funds and to stop the game of the assumption that if they are starved, the senators will be under pressure and they will pass the formula quickly. I think those two things should be completely distinct and separated, because I think that the formula of changes of this kind, or like the financing arrangement that are being made, can take years to agree. So I think the status quo should proceed as the debates carry on an optimal framework for changing from the status quo to whatever else they think is better.
Okay.
I think this gamemanship should really stop.
Right. Now, far from that, remember, we do have a vast coverage of the latest on COVID-19 on the Standard. You can read page 12 to find out what's happening on that front, why hospitals test for the dead for COVID-19, and why the obese are at high risk, according to a report that has been released. You need to read more about that. The numbers are the percentage is quite appalling, and more on politics has been covered adversely. Take a look at the Standard this morning and get yourself informed. But far from that, let's take a look at Matiang'i blacklists 9 over terrorism. This is a story that is making it to the Daily Nation as well as the front page of the Standard. You're told state freezes assets of terror financiers. Briefly, Honorable Bunyasi, could you tell us about your take on this one? This story is on the back page of the Daily Nation and on page 2 of the Standard.